Hi, everybody. Matt Bernier, joined by Mike Beer, taking a look at the Saturday DRFBets race of the day for November the 17th, race number 8 at the Big A Aqueduct. Mile and 3/8 on the turf course, or supposed to be on the turf course, the Grade 3 Red Smith Handicap. Before we dive into the field, I encourage you to head on over to DRFBets, take a look at the latest sign-up offer for new sign-up members. Head on over to bets.drf.com or drf.com/bet for all the details. Let's take a look at the field that's going to go, again, scheduled mile and 3/8 on the grass. You can head on over to the Race of the Day page on drf.com, download free formulator past performances. We'll go through this field in post position order. Mike, I've already said it twice, but it sounds like there's a real scenario. The weather that's coming through New York, this race could end up off the turf. There are a number of AEs and MTOs in this race. We're not going to go over those horses. We're only going to go over the horses that are scheduled to run on the grass. The number 1, Teodoro, goes out. First time for Tom Morley. Second time here in the United States. Most recently, disappointing in the Turf Classic. Faded late over soft going. He'd probably get something similar to that if this stays on the grass. I think he's up against it.
Yeah, he just looks like he's in a tough spot. It did feel like he was improving earlier this year over in Europe, but listen, if you need an excuse for his stateside debut, he broke very slowly in that race, and then he rushed up and contested the pace with Channelmaker. But other than that, based on his overall form, he's pretty hard to like in this race.
Village King, one of a couple in here for Todd Pletcher, most recently made his second lifetime start in the United States. Showed some speed, just got pipped at the wire by Profiteer. We know on his best day on turf, he's an okay horse. You also see Zenner in there. The fourth place finisher came back and earned a 92 buyer on dirt. He figures to be a pace presence in this race. I think he's comparable as far as figures are concerned, but I still think he may need to move up slightly if he's going to win.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we'll see about distance, too. I know he wanted 1.25 miles over there in Argentina, but I don't know about how far he wants to go. I will say he took a nice step forward last time. He was pretty stubborn on the lead in there, even though he was outfinished. Of course, you have to go back 2 back. Zulu Alpha just buried him at Churchill Downs, but he was off the layoff there.
Speaking of Zulu Alpha and speaking of the pace that the 2-horse showed, let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. You can see they have the 2-horse out there on the front end, that being one of the Pletchers in this spot. And the number 3 is Zulu Alpha. Now, Zulu Alpha, you made mention, really handily took care of Village King. But there's a scenario where you look at Zulu Alpha, and look, Mike Maker's a wizard with these types. And I know John Ortiz has had the training job for the past 2, or the most recent start anyway, the win in Sycamore. He just feels like he's finally put it all together, and that tactical ability, if you tell me that's how the pace projector plays out and that's actually how it goes, yeah, he's going to be working at a perfect trip.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's certainly the case. I think if you wanted to go back to his Sycamore last time and just, look at the replay and say, well, he got a perfect trip in there. He did. But he also won that race very easily over a pretty good field of horses, too. He felt like, to me, a horse who, when he first got here last year, like he was going to be okay, and maybe he lost his way a little bit, but he is certainly back in really good form. Now, I really like his last 2 races, Matt. And, listen, the trainer changed. Do you really expect Maker to get him any better than he ran in his last 2? I doubt it. But all he has to do is keep him the same.
The other Pletcher in here, drawn just to the outside in the 4-post, is Gallop Americano. This is a horse that made his stateside debut, came off of a considerable layoff most recently in that race that Village King also exits. I suppose you can look at it and say he needed a race before he was going to get his best. What do you think of the distance? He's run well at 1.5 miles in Brazil in the past.
Yeah, it seems like the distance should be okay for him. He did not run well in that race last time, but as you say, he was off the layoff. If you look at Village King and the way he stepped forward second off the layoff for Pletcher, maybe this horse does the same. He does the same. He's in contention.
Solio is a horse that early on in his career, it looked like there may be some bigger and better things down the road. He has become an effective horse, but he has not been a world beater by any stretch. His most recent run was a victory in a non-winners of 2 other than down at Keeneland. 2 starts back, he was only beaten 3/4 of a length in the Grade 3 Kentucky Turf Cup. He has a little bit of versatility. I still think he's best coming from slightly off the pace as opposed to pushing it. I suppose you should work at a good trip in here beneath John Velasquez.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a little better from off the pace. There's nothing to really say about this, not on the page. I think he sort of is what he is. I got to admit, I'm not a huge fan of his. I think races like this are a little too tough for him, but Maker's done a good job with him.
Call Provision goes out for Chad Brown. Now, we know what Chad's capable of, and Call Provision has an affinity for the Aqueduct turf. He's 3 for 4 times in the exacta from 4 lifetime starts. He really came pretty darn close to winning this race last year, weaving through traffic down on the inside, only to lose by a half length to Spring Quality. I suppose I question for you right now, where is he overall from a form standpoint? I thought that most recent run was okay, not great.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't like his last race all that much. Although that was sort of a weird race, with Black Tide just clearing off on the front. The whole field was closing on him at the stretch, but nobody could catch him. And I also just feel like that 1.125 miles, it's a little short for him. I mean, this horse is a lot better going longer, and he's shown that since Chad stretched him out. He likes Aqueduct. His form before the Ashley Cole last time was actually pretty good, and I think he's a big contender in this race.
Shug sends out Inspector Lindley breaking from post 7. Jose Lezcano has the mount. This is a horse that, look, if you look at his 4 most recent starts, he's just a model of consistency, 399s and a 100 buyer. If you think you're going to get something right there, then he's certainly going to have a chance at the wire. I'm a little bit concerned about this distance. I don't know that this is necessarily ideal for him. What are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, that was the concern I had with him too, because I actually like him as a horse. And I do think he's come back in really good form this year as a 5-year-old. I like the races that he's running. I just don't know about him stretching out this far. Maybe he'll get it. We'll see what kind of price he is. He was the kind of horse to me, Matt, I wanted to use him somewhere if he was going to be an okay price in this race. And it feels like he could be an okay price.
There was a point earlier this year where I thought for bigger picture, maybe his best days were behind him, but then it seems like miraculously he's put it back together and is at least bringing respectable form into this, a 3rd place finish in the Sycamore most recently. And he was only beaten a half length in that Kentucky Turf Cup 2 starts back, beating a length up at Saratoga over soft going in the Bowling Green. I suppose it's a positive that he's performed well over testing ground, and he's 2 for 4 at Aqueduct in the past.
Yeah, he seems like the kind of horse you could sort of throw anything at him, any course condition, just about any distance. He shows up and runs his race. I was with you. I felt like as a 7-year-old he maybe lost a step, but he's still pretty competitive. He can get good trips in his races. He's a dangerous horse at a price.
The number 9, Big Bend, I don't really know where he is from a form standpoint for Tom Proctor. His best race is still probably a little bit on the slow side. He had shown earlier in his career, he had shown speed, and really I think the speed would help him in a race like this. Blinkers come off, perhaps the equipment change wakes him up a little bit, but I think he's hard to recommend based on recent form.
Yeah, I agree with all that stuff. I mean, he just looks like a horse who is in a little bit tough in a race like this.
The number 10, Postulation, his most recent run in the point of entry at Belmont, that came over a very, very boggy turf course, and I think it's difficult to analyze anything about that race thus far. Only 6 horses ran, and there's only been 1 to come out of that, and that was the 5th place finisher, and he only earned a 67 in the next start. You know that this horse likes some cut in the ground. You know on his best day, he's in with a puncher's chance, and he's probably still going to be a fair price. It is worth noting he's cross-entered at Churchill Downs on Saturday as well.
Right. I don't know where he's going to run. I suppose maybe this would be the better spot, if only because it seems like distance is what he wants, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. His last 2 races are fine. Hello, Don Julio beat him both times. I look at him and feel like, I don't know, Postulation got great trips in both of those races, couldn't really make a race of it either time. I know he's okay. I think he fits in here with his very best race, but I don't love his last 2 races.
There's a slew of also eligibles and a couple of main track onlys. I'll leave that up to you as the handicapper to go through and decipher that. As far as this field that is supposed to go in the Red Smith, let's take a look and see where we ended up going. Mike, you and I will both look at it and say Zulu Alpha, he should work at a good trip, and he's in career form.
Yeah, that's exactly how I looked at it. I mean, I like his last 2 races a lot. I know he got a perfect trip last time. I think he's in line to get another one.
Anyone else that you'd be considering using?
I'm using Call Provision in this race. I really feel like for Chad, I know with Chad you take the worst of it on the tote board usually, but this horse, he wants more distance.
3-6 for Mike, 3-6 for me in the 8th race at Aqueduct on Saturday. Hopefully it stays on the grass. It's the DRFBets race of the day, the Red Smith Stakes, 1 3/8. If you're playing this race or any other race from Aqueduct on Saturday or anywhere else, head on over to bets.drf.com or drf.com/bet for all the latest as far as details are concerned for a new DRFBets account. Schedule post time for race number 8 at the Big A on Saturday afternoon, 3:47 Eastern. Good luck.